And so, on behalf of the state of California, let me pronounce you married.
Yeah.
We're back, and that was one of a flood of weddings this weekend between same-sex couples following the big Supreme Court decision of last week. And as gay rights supporters crowded the streets of New York and San Francisco for the annual gay pride parades, the U.S. Supreme Court gave them another reason to celebrate when Justice Anthony Kennedy, the decisive vote on the court, rejected a last-ditch effort by opponents of marriage equality to halt the granting of marriage licenses out in California. And the celebrations last week, amid them, the Pennsylvania first and the openly gay member of the legislature there, Brian Sims, he's a state rep, was silenced by some of his conservative colleagues when he tried to speak on the historic nature of the court's landmark rulings. Do you believe that? He couldn't even talk. Well, State Representative Darrell Metcalf, a Republican, was one of the lawmakers who shut down Sims, and here was his reason.
I did not believe that as a member of that body that I should allow someone to make comments such as he was preparing to make that ultimately were just open rebellion against what the Word of God has said, what God has said, and just open rebellion against God's law.
Pretty clearly stated there. Anyway, State Representative Brian Sims joins me now from Harrisburg. He represents Center City, Philadelphia. Ted Boutros, by the way, he's also joining us. He's an attorney for the American Foundation for Equal Rights. He also represented the plaintiffs in that Prop 8 case. Both gentlemen, thank you so much. Representative Sims, tell me what happened. You tried to talk about the historic nature of these court rulings, and you were doing it in what we call in Washington an executive session, not with a big audience or gallery. And even that, among just your colleagues, bothered people.
Yep, you said it best, Chris. Thanks for having me back on. You know, I had an opportunity at the end of the session on Tuesday after the decisions had come out to rise and address my colleagues and to talk about the historic nature of the Supreme Court cases. And I'd let the Speaker of the House know ahead of time that I was just going to talk about the cases. I wasn't going to talk about the fact that Pennsylvania lacks all LGBT civil rights. I wasn't going to point any fingers. Just as a civil rights attorney and now as an openly gay legislator, I wanted to reference the historic nature of the cases. And as you know, I got 3 words in before I was objected to. Now, the procedural rules called unanimous consent, and as it implies, when it's not unanimous, I don't have the consent to speak. And as soon as I started talking, Representative Metcalf and another member of the House raised their hand to silence me.
Let's take a look at Ralph Reed here. I want to, before I bring in Ted, I want to Ralph Reed. This idea that inevitably we're going to have 50 states going with marriage equality is a little premature right now. Catch Ralph Reed, who knows the business on the evangelical conservative side. Here he is on Meet the Press with David Gregory, playing down the impact of that court decision. Let's watch him in action.
I also don't buy into this sort of Whig notion of history that this is sort of an inevitable train and this is where we're going to go. Even after this decision, David, 70% of the American people live in states that define marriage as between a man and a woman. 32 of those states passed referendums with an average margin of 57%. And in a CBS New York Times poll on June 9th, 60% of the American people and a majority of Democrats said they want this resolved at the state level.
Well, let me go to Ted Boutros on that. By the way, Ralph looked especially tired in that presentation. I don't know what was going on Meet the Press yesterday. Kind of looks like he'd been up for a month. But anyway, what's going on here? Do you think the right wing has a chance to stop this movement that seems to be historically unstoppable for equality?
I don't think so, Chris. I think the court's decisions last week, the Justice Kennedy's opinion for the court in the Defense of Marriage Act case, laid out the broad principles that discriminating against couples because of their sexual orientation when it comes to marriage, it demeans them, it humiliates them and their children. Those principles that the court established are directly in line with the things the court had said in prior decisions. They're going to lead, I think, to marriage equality in this country, and I think Mr. Reed is wrong. There's been a wave of public support, as you and your audience knows, in support of marriage equality, and the wave just got a whole lot bigger last week with the Supreme Court's decisions. And to be here in California and see people getting married and the joy that is running through this state is just remarkable.
Brian, do the members who oppose you and won't even let you speak up at Harrisburg, even in an executive session, do they know their time's running out, that young people who are joining the election rolls, certainly 18 to 25, up to 35 or 40 now, are clearly pro-equality?
Not only do they know it, Chris, I think that's what this was about. When, let's be clear, marriage equality is going to become the law of the land no matter what. And, I think this is an issue of when losers are losing, they start to lash out. I think that they know that this is happening. They're doing their best to sort of stem this tide, resorting to, to behavior like this and lashing out. But I think that's what you do when you know that you were on the wrong side of history and you're still fighting.
So all they can do is silence you for a couple months, and you'll be back at it again. Because here you are on national television, sort of overcoming their problem, aren't you?
Well, I think as you can see, I don't get silenced all that easily. I come from a generation of people that don't tolerate bullies, that don't put up with bullies. Guys like the chairman have been doing this their whole lives. They've been, this has been happening in the United States for 200 years. But now they're running into people like me. They're running into a generation of people that aren't going to put up with it. They're going to stand up for ourselves, stand up for our rights, stand up for our communities.
As Maggie Thatcher would say, come back again and again. Thank you, by the way, State Representative Brian Sims and Ted Bouchas. Congratulations, sir, for being part of that amazing odd couple of Boyce and Olson. Anyway, we'll be right back after this.